Baseball is as American as apple pie. No sport is more deeply woven into the fabric of the United States. Yet halfway across the world, in a country known for its rich traditions and ancient sports, baseball has become something entirely its own. Japan, where sumo wrestling and martial arts are very popular, has taken an American pastime and made it a national obsession. How did this happen? How did a game born in the fields of 19th century America find its way into the hearts of millions in Japan, becoming more than just a sport? Walking into a Japanese baseball stadium is a spectacle that leaves even the most seasoned baseball veterans in awe. So how did it all begin? What sparked Japan's love affair with baseball, and how has it grown into what it is now? Let's find out. At the end of last year, Shohei Ohtani signed the biggest sports deal ever. He was already one of the most famous players in the world. The Los Angeles Dodgers gave Ohtani a $700 million deal to keep him as a player for 10 years. But almost all of the payments won't be made until after Ohtani has likely retired. The Dodgers will pay Ohtani $2 million every year for the next 10 years. This is on top of any contracts he already has. Ohtani will be paid $68 million a year from 2034 to 2043. That is somewhat of a good way to start retirement, don't you think? Players from Japan have made it to Major League Baseball before Ohtani. It was Ichiro who had the most hits in a single season, Matsui who loved in the Bronx. Darvish has been an all-star almost every year since he joined the game, but none of them had quite the same level of fame as this one. Ohtani is valuable because he is a real two-way star, the first in almost 100 years since Babe Ruth.
In 1931, an all-star team led by Lou Gehrig, Al Simmons, and Lefty Grove played in Tokyo to standing room only. The warlords became afraid of baseball.
This is true even in a year without pitching. So does his appeal around the world, especially in baseball-loving Japan, where he is very famous. There are a lot of international stars in American sports like Nowitzki, Ming, Antetokounmpo, Jokic, Ovechkin, Acuna, and Soto. Japan is a rich country with 125 million people, and baseball is an important part of everyday life there. How did baseball start in Japan? Japanese baseball didn't start out in a typical way. Horace Wilson, an American who had served in the Civil War, was packing his things on the family farm in Gorham, Maine, 150 years ago. He was going to teach English at Keizei Gakko, which later became Tokyo Imperial University. He was one of the many experts sent to traditional Japan at the time to help bring it up to date. It turned out to be one of the most important things he did. Wilson learned how to play baseball during the war, and when he got to Tokyo in 1871, he thought his students could use some help. Improvising a bat and ball, he led his kids out of the classroom at break and taught them the basics of the game. His way of getting his kids to work out outside was through baseball. Kids in his class have always loved baseball. To put it simply, they were amazed. Japan's first team sport was baseball. Japanese people had done martial arts before, but that was more of a personal thing. People now call it the second national game after sumo. That's how crazy it is across the country. Wilson helped baseball catch on in Japan, but it really took off when a Japanese team beat a foreign team in Yokohama in 1896. Newspaper commentators spent hours writing about how great the winners were as national heroes. When the winner was announced, the game caught on like wildfire in a desert. Kids in elementary schools in the country far from Tokyo were seen playing with bats and balls all summer and for a few months after. Since then, baseball fans and experts alike have thought about what it was about the game that makes it so appealing to the Japanese mind and how it has grown so much in the past 150 years, making it through 2 world wars. Ironically, it was because of the American military occupation that baseball became so famous after the atomic bomb. In 1949, General Douglas MacArthur, who was in charge of the Allied forces, asked Lefty O'Doul and his San Francisco Seals to play in Japan. He did this to boost confidence and build bridges between the conquerors and the defeated, who were suffering greatly from housing and food shortages. O'Doul was already well known to Japanese baseball fans because he helped set up both the country's official league and Babe Ruth's 1934 promotional trip. The Seals' 10-game tour was a huge success from start to finish. A game against a U.S. military all-star team drew 500,000 people, including 14,000 war orphans. Besides Wilson, O'Doul was one of only a few Americans honored in Japan's Baseball Hall of Fame. He was personally thanked by Emperor Hirohito, yet the sport is appealing for more than just its fame. There's no doubt that some important parts of the game fit with the way Japanese people work. Teamwork, persistence, and discipline are all very important in baseball, and the Japanese put a high value on these traits. Players try to stay with the same team for their whole careers because loyalty is also very important. There is also a romantic side to the idea. There is something appealing about the duel between the pitcher and the batter that makes you think of samurai warriors fighting. One of the most unique things about Japanese baseball games is the Aonden, which technically means cheering squad, but is actually a battalion of fans dressed in team colors and determined to yell at the top of their lungs. The noise is made even louder by taiko drums, horns, and megaphones. Pom-pom girls, an idea that came from the US, add some color to the scene. The shouting, clapping, and chanting all happen at the same time. It is also very unusual for people to boo and swear at the other team. A lot of people are always amazed by how much the Japanese love and respect the sport. A big reason baseball was able to grow during this time was that Japanese school and college students changed how they thought about outdoor games. Western team sports, which are characterized by formal organization, rigorous training, strict rules, and the presence of officials at all matches, took the place of activities that were seen as fun and not serious. This was probably one of the reasons why Waseda University was one of the first schools in Japan to have an official baseball team. The team was led by Abe Isu, a Christian socialist and peacemaker who is often called the father of Japanese baseball. This is a pretty big title for him. He apparently didn't care much about the sport before joining the university. But once he did, he became an advocate for how it could improve people's personalities and teamwork. And he would spend most of the next 40 years pioneering the sport in Japan. At what point did baseball become professional in Japan? Japan was getting ready for professional baseball by the 1920s. In 1934, the Great Japan Tokyo Baseball Club was formed. In that year, an American all-star team with stars like Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, and Lefty Gomez went to the country to promote baseball. The Stars were to play 18 games in Japan, and hundreds of thousands of fans lined the streets to welcome them. The U.S. team won all 18 games, and Ruth hit 13 home runs during the tour. Then, Japan's first fully professional league was set up in 1936. 5 other teams joined the Tokyo Club in the Japanese Baseball League. However, because of the coming Second World War, the league was put on hold in the early 1940s and resumed when the war was over. The Japanese Baseball League broke up in 1949, but it was brought back together the next year as the Nippon Baseball League, which is still Japan's top baseball league. Millions of people watch the sport every year, from the Nippon Baseball League to the very competitive and closely watched high school competition. More than 25 million people went to the Nippon Baseball League games in 2023. More than 7 million people played baseball in the past year, according to the most recent census data. Those numbers might keep going up, since Shohei Ohtani is still on track for a Hall of Fame career, even on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. Sadaharu Oh is one of the most important figures in Japanese baseball history. Oh's success was so great that he was often compared to Babe Ruth. Oh started his career with the Yomiuri Giants in 1959. He was a hitter who was half Taiwanese and half Japanese. He hit 868 home runs in his career, which is a world record and made him one of the best power players in baseball history. Oh's success not only inspired future generations of Japanese baseball players, It also got attention around the world as proof that Japan could produce top-level players. Sadaharu Oh had a big impact on Japanese baseball, but so did Shigeo Nagashima, a famous third baseman who played with Oh for a long time. Along with each other, they were the Yomiuri Giants' most famous pair, and they dominated the NPB League in the 1960s and 1970s. Now we're in the modern age, and Japanese stars like Shohei Ohtani and Ichiro Suzuki have dominated both the NPB and Major League Baseball. Japanese players were able to break down barriers during Ichiro's legendary time in Major League Baseball. He was one of the most consistent hitters and defensive outfielders in the history of the game. He ended his MLB career with more than 3,000 hits, showing that Japanese players could do well at the top level. Without question, these players' success has raised Japan's profile in baseball around the world. Japan has taken up baseball and made it an important part of its culture, thanks to players like Sadaharu Oh and Shohei Ohtani. As long as Japan keeps making world-class athletes and competing at the top levels, it will continue to have a huge impact on baseball around the world. As we look to the future, Japan is likely to stay a baseball powerhouse. The World Baseball Classic and other international tournaments are both helping to raise the level of play. Now the question is, where will Japanese baseball go next? Could Japan become even more dominant? And will Japanese players keep pushing the limits of what's possible in baseball? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos. See you in the next video.